should have that always. Start. So there we are, 7 o'clock. So let me, Nick, are you all set?
So it's like a
Okay, all right. Let's call to order then the Town of Hanover Selectboard meeting for Monday, May 19th, 2025. We'll not need a public hearing. Agenda review, I don't believe is necessary unless any select board members wish to comment on the agenda. Order? No? Okay. Announcements, we have no announcements. Rob, is that correct?
Yeah.
Yep, okay. Public comment. This is the period of the agenda when the public is welcome to address the select board. We ask that one addresses issues not already scheduled on the agenda. We ask that individuals restrict their comments to 5 minutes. Questions will be directed to the chair of the select board. And are there any public comments?
I'm turning up my hearing aids so I can hear what you're saying.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure if you wanted to make any public comments for items that are not on the agenda.
Well, recap of town meeting was on the agenda, right?
You know,
I talked with Athos and Jeremy after town meeting. I had wanted to say something, but I didn't get acknowledged and the meeting ended and they said, come to the select board meeting.
well, then now's your time. So yes, please, please feel free. And do we need her to sit at the table? No. Can we pick up the audio? Nick? Is it better if she's?
I can speak very loudly.
Okay, and if you could just say your name and where you live.
My name is Margaret Bragg. I live at 108 Greensboro Road. And I was hoping at town meeting to end the meeting by remembering and honoring David Suter, who had died within a week, 5 days before town meeting. And I had pulled up at that point an article in that day's New York Times by Adam Liptek. It was called "A Warning from Justice Souter, Democracy is in Peril." It says, Justice David H. Souter, who died last week, said in 2012 that public ignorance of the Constitution could lead to a rise of an autocrat and the death of democracy. And I did go to the YouTube video that he refers to in this article, Constitutionally Speaking. It's an hour and 26 minutes. It was September 2012. And Margaret Warner from the PBS NewsHour was the moderator. And they were talking about how does the Constitution keep up with society. And the most notable, I did listen to the whole video, and the most noteworthy part to me was when somebody asked about the role of public school education. And that's when David Souter talked about his fear that ignorance was going to lead to the death of democracy, and that somebody would come along and say, I can fix everything, let me take over. And he really was concerned and very prescient, I would say, about democracy in this country. He said, if ignorance is what will kill democracy. So there was a follow-up, at least for me, it was a follow-up. It was an article in the Valley News this week by Noah Feldman. I heard Noah Feldman interviewed on NPR after Souter's death. He clerked for Souter from 1998 to 1999, and he said he was the smartest man he ever met. The end of his piece here, An Exemplary Justice, he says, he was the best and wisest man I've ever known. And I just wanted Hanover to honor him at town meeting. So this is it.
Thank you, Margaret, for sharing that. Yes, that would have been a nice note at the end of town meeting. So glad, thank you for coming out and sharing it with us now. Appreciate that. And you're welcome to stay for more of the meeting if you like.
Meeting, I'm not sure where's the rest of the select board.
Well, so yes, we're down 2 members. So we have a quorum, but owing to various circumstances, we're down 2 select board members. So.
For the day.
Just for today. Yes, we hope so. Okay, thank you. All right, let's move on to business requiring discussion. The first item of which is the organizational meeting for 2025-2026 Select Board. I think in light of our attendance tonight, we defer that to the June 2nd meeting. Statutory boards and committees review. And I kind of feel the same. Rob, thank you for putting together at Joanna's request, the list of committees. And noting which were statutory advisory.
I do want to point out, thank you, Jenny, for that, that the CIPC is advisory. It's a statutory, it's a committee established by statute, but it is only an advisory committee. So I may need another category.
It's both, it's statutory and advisory. Okay, got it. Yep.
Whereas most of the other, I think all of the other committees are created by the overarching committee or board for the purpose of receiving advice on that topic.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Jenny. So what I may do, if you all agree, is just circulate the committee assignments as they are constituted now and just get people thinking about what they might want to do. But we'll also come back to the topic of the entire list next meeting. Questions on that? No. So thank you, Rob, also for putting in the RFP for West Wheelock and South Main Street corridor improvements. Do you want to turn to that now?
Sure. There's, as you know, the goal is to hit the ground running so that we don't lose a month and a half going through the RFP selection process. I would like to get this out by the end of this week with the hope of having someone in the queue for July 1 or shortly thereafter, and then move this project forward as timely as possible with the expectation that we have a presentation on the results of this to the select board in December or early January. I know that there is a recommendation to shorten that window. We can certainly do that as an alternative in the RFP, but it might have a cost associated with it. And I'm a little bit concerned because this is already a tight, financially constrained request, given the scope.
So right now, there is not a defined timetable in the RFP language. Is that right?
There is not.
Okay. I believe that John Dolan also sent you some language beyond the timetable, also with respect to the TIF language, and I think it's along the lines of what. So I don't know if your intent is to think about modifying or not, but you're hoping to get this out this week. So
yeah, I can say that I haven't spent a lot of time reviewing the recommendations, and I've been a little distracted with a couple of small things.
Yes, yeah.
So I'll, tomorrow when I'm back in the office, I'll go through all the recommendations that I've received to date, see how they impact the project as I understand them. My preference would be to include a broader reach and then articulate in that transmittal letter the optimal turnaround time and some of the other options that are there. We could do it as a alternative cost in all 1, all 2, all 3, and see what that adds to the project. And if it keeps it within budget, then it makes sense to move forward.
Thank you for that. So Jenny knows this, but for the benefit of Jared and also our listening public, the CIPC did look at this RFP, and the feedback, at least from a couple of the members, was that the RFP as written under Section 3 has an entire section on TIF financial impact analysis. And the observation was that if, as described earlier, there are a number of financing options: general fund bonds, TIF, municipal impact fees, grants. It seems that item number 3, which really is kind of a deep dive on the TIF financial impact analysis, might be better constructed as financial impact analysis of the various options as opposed to just the TIF. So that, I think that was the main, that together with a timeline, which, as Rob just articulated, might be costly and or impossible, were I think the main suggestions to modify this RFP. And thoughts on, so Rob, kind of liked your idea of putting in the timeline and maybe either characterizing it as optimal or perhaps teasing out 2 different costs, like not to encourage a higher cost for something that might be deliverable in any way, in any event. Not sure how you finesse that, but. Thoughts?
So I'm sorry, so you're saying that last section there, can you just?
So there is a generalized concern that it is a challenge to come up with options and then have a community deliberation with respect to the options and still meet all the deadlines for town meeting. You really need to have the options teased out early.
Yeah.
To get, especially if you're anticipating getting buy-in from schools, and the school budget gets done even before the town budget. So there really is a very compressed timeline. And so to reflect that compressed timeline in the RFP in some way.
And I'll look at how I can modify the RFP. And I thank the CIPC committee for their feedback. Ultimately, this is one of those where, as your town manager, I'm responsible for it, and
You gotta make it work.
and
Yes.
do this by committee, things may not move forward.
Yes.
So,
Okay.
Rob, do you think that any of this RFP needs to be scaled back in order to move forward?
I don't. I'd like to get it out.
Yeah.
And if the price, so the beauty of the way it's structured is we reserve the right to reject all minor regularities and negotiate the scope and modifications in 7. So we found some that we liked, but it was 20,000 over budget. The first option would be, can I bring it down and still get a quality project? The second option would be, can I look for more money? And, that's what we can do that under this structure.
Thank you. Any further comments, questions on the RFP language?
So this is a request for proposals for coming up with how much it's going to cost and what are the options to finance renovations of South Main, which is our Main Street, and West Wheelock. Exciting stuff.
Thank you. For
Fixed
that.
our sidewalks.
Thank you. Let's just any further comments. Let's move on to Warrant Article 22, which calls upon the Select Board, and this was approved at town meeting to transmit a letter to our governor and members of the New Hampshire State Legislature with respect to education funding. And thank you, Rob, for putting together the transmittal letter. And unless there are any questions, the transmittal letter is very straightforward. And it incorporates Article 22 language, and it's preceded by Dear Governor Ayotte, members of the legislature. The following article was adopted at the Hanover Town Meeting held on May 13, 2025, and is being transmitted to you as set forth in the article. To read the article for the benefit of CATV. Sure. Okay. All right.
Okay, just from the top.
Sure.
Okay. To the Honorable Governor Kelly Ayotte, Officer of the Governor, 107 North Main Street, Concord, New Hampshire. Members of the New Hampshire State Legislature, State House, 107 North Main Street, Concord, New Hampshire. Dear Governor Ayotte and members of the legislature. The following article was adopted at the Hanover Town Meeting held on May 13, 2025, and is being transmitted to you as set forth in the article. Article 22 by petition. To see if the town will vote to reject any expansion of taxpayer funding for private education until we have full accountability, transparency, and sustainable funding plan that ensures no further strain on public schools or local property taxpayers. Whereas taxpayers have the right to know how their money is spent and deserve clear, verifiable evidence that it is being spent wisely and delivering results. And whereas taxpayer dollars are being diverted from public schools to private and religious education through education freedom accounts, vouchers. And this shift does not reduce public school expenses, leaving local taxpayers to cover the difference through higher property taxes. And whereas unlike public schools, private education funded by taxpayers through vouchers lacks key accountability measures, such as reporting how funds are being used, tracking student performance, ensuring services for students with disabilities, and conducting background checks for staff and adherence to minimum standards. Therefore, we, the voters of Hanover, New Hampshire, call on our state elected officials to uphold their duty to fiscal responsibility by rejecting any expansion of taxpayer funding for private education until we have full accountability, transparency, and sustainable funding plan that ensures no further strain on public schools or property taxpayers. We further direct the town of Hanover Select Board to deliver this warrant article and the results in writing to the New Hampshire governor and members of the state legislature within 30 days of this vote, submitted by petition with signatures of 25 or more registered voters in the town of Hanover, RSA 675:4, respectfully, Hanover Select Board.
Okay. Thank you, Susan Holcomb and petitioners. We will send this off. So thank you, Jared, for reading that. Similarly, we are following up with a different tack. Warrant Articles 23 and 24. Rob, you addressed this in your materials, but your recommendation is to have more substantive conversations a little bit down the road. Do you want to talk to that?
Absolutely. Article 23, I'm suggesting that the select board, if they're inclined to look at how best to incorporate the recommendations into what is our ordinance 38, our fair policing or our Hanover welcoming ordinance, that we staff, your senior leadership team at police, myself and the town attorney be given time, 45 days specifically, to determine how best to proceed with this information. There is, I think, legislation on the governor's desk waiting for her signature that may impact what we can and can't do. So that's one of the things we need to look at.
Thank you. And Article 24.
In Article 24, so the conversation relates to what kind of staff resources we're going to need. I would like to meet with our partner, JAM, see how they manage the hybrid meeting model in Norwich and in Hartford, to understand who manages the meeting. I can say that my preference in a select board, planning board, zoning board type meeting, where there's a very formal process for public hearings and public input, that they be managed under the webinar version of Zoom, not the meeting version, which means that only those who are considered speakers, presenters, have access to mic and video. Everybody else is an attendee and it can listen, but can't participate until such time that they're promoted into the meeting for the purpose of speaking. That's the method we use at the planning board and the zoning board. And it prevents some of the headaches that were described elsewhere. Early on, we were Zoom bombed more than our fair share. The whole purpose of webinar is to make sure that we're 91A compliant, that those who can have a right to communicate are, and that there's only one form of communication. So for allowing Zoom, for example, and I dial in on my phone, I can't see whiteboard or chat or anything else. So technically, those tools would be a violation of 91A. And we need to walk through all of those things. I'm not suggesting that the school board's approach doesn't comply with 91A, but I think there's some risk associated with their approach that I'm not comfortable with. So I'm asking for time to meet with JM and to determine how best to approach it. I can say at the planning board level, we typically have two staff. One can spend the time, promoting and managing Zoom, and the other can be fully engaged in the meeting, hopefully. There is some small distraction when you're dealing with all that.
Yes, I can imagine. Okay, thank you. Questions or comments around response to?
I would say I think the planning board model works really well. So if that's something that we can do with JAM, that would be great.
Yep.
Do you think it will take 45 days?
I think I asked for 30.
Oh, okay.
Or I may not, 30 days. Do I think it will take that long? I don't know their schedule. I suspect what we're gonna find is they don't use webinar because it's a fee, a significant fee difference from, and the town is an account holder, so we could promote them.
Can say a little bit.
Yes, please, Nick. Yes.
Hello, Nick.
Yes.
I'm not, the biggest. I just run these things, but I do hear of what we have used webinar, but just this week, we are scaling it down to a little cheaper option because it's like a 500 capacity thing. So we're doing I think it's like 100 capacity one.
Who manages attendee versus presenter?
Generally for the town would be, so whoever
Well, we may not have to meet.
yeah.
Right.
So for like Hartford, I run Hartford. I promote one of the select board members that's designated to run it to be the co-host, and then they'll promote to presenters and let people talk and all that stuff. It's kind of there. Just kind of like how public comment is. we don't have any say in cutting people off or letting people talk. They designate, at least Hartford does designate someone to run the Zoom.
So I like Hartford's model. The select board's responsible.
Yes.
No, so I think we can work. I can put forward an outline of how we can approach this. And I also think there's merit in establishing protocol. I would recommend we actually have the very first slide up on the screen as we're waiting to go live, the Zoom protocol for everyone to see as they log in. So that we're fully transparent as to what the ground.
Okay, very good. Thanks, Nick.
Was it 45 for the ice? Is
Yeah,
that for the
40.
governor or?
No,
It's-
it's 45 days for our ice review so that I don't know the town attorney's schedule. I'm trying to figure out when the governor, if she's going to sign this legislation, and then how it impacts us. And then obviously what I would propose is that we try to come up with language and present the edited document to you. And I think giving us that 45 days would give us the leeway to do all. Meet with council, see the governor's response to this legislation, and come up with some language associated with how we can incorporate it.
My layperson's reading, it was very consistent with what we have.
Yep.
And then just added some clarity, just because that agreement that they're referencing has some ambiguous language in it, which is not just a way to like tidy up that we wouldn't be participating in that type of agreement. But it sounds like, yeah. We wouldn't be entering into an agreement without it coming before the select board either. So I don't think we're in a lot of.
So the legislation that's pending allows if I remember the brief that I read, would exempt police departments from following direction from town officials.
Oh, really? Oh, so it might be irrelevant. Interesting.
See, let's
That
see
it
how they go.
relates to 287G.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, unless there's anything else on that, we will move on to town manager monthly report. There is none, but is it worth spending a few minutes on town meeting since it is just fresh in our minds? So I would say, and I'm looking to Tracy here, not to put you on the spot, but town meeting, I mean, the voting seemed to go very well. Looks like the tallies worked well with the new machines.
We feel so. The reports are still being written on that, so I don't want to speak for Bobby, but overall, I can tell you our volume of same day voting was up 50% from last year, total numbers. We thought it went very smoothly.
Okay, yeah, good. We were, I think, about an hour less length than the year before, so that's a win. So any other reflections that anyone has on town meeting? Thank you all very much. I mean, it was great. It was very well run. Okay, business requiring action. It says 60 minutes. It will be far less. Recommendation to review the proposed rate and fee schedule on Monday, June 2nd, and to set public hearing on Monday, June 16, to approve the proposed rate and fee schedule for fiscal year 2026. Anything to add to that, Rob?
No, our goal is to have a rate fee schedule adopted before the fiscal year starts. Obviously, ideally, we get it done a little earlier, but we think we can bring a full rate fee update to the board for their consideration on June 2nd, public hearing on June 16th.
Okay, so we will need, under business requiring action, there is language for a recommendation.
I'll move to set a public hearing on Monday, May 16th, 2025 to review and approve proposed rates and fees.
Second.
Are you didn't second by saying second?
No, but that was second with a question mark. Yeah.
Yeah, we can set the public hearing. Yeah.
Okay, all right. That's a second. All right. Any comments or questions on that?
No, I'm looking forward to seeing the rates and fees.
Okay. All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay. Next up, approval of May 5th Select Board minutes.
Approve this 2025 select board minutes as written.
I have like an adjustment.
Do we have, we need a second so we can have.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, we do.
Second,
You will second
Yeah.
and you will potentially amend?
yep, potentially amend. Just Article 13, when we discuss the Scrivener's error. I clarified with the town manager that the right of way included sidewalks.
So 13.
On page 205.
Page 205.
So, so you just want that added, Jenny, that.
Yeah, to the minutes,
sidewalk.
that I clarified
Yeah.
that the right of way included sidewalks with the town manager.
Okay, so that will be amended. Do you accept the amendments?
Yeah, sure.
And then 305, just because now I'm in a very sidewalky mood, I expressed, when we discussed it, to say Chamberlain expressed the desire for a walkable path to Stores Pond.
Where on page 3 is that?
Well, anywhere in the discussion, but it says the board discussed about 3/4 of the way down on 305, so.
The board
we can make
discussed,
that there. And like in addition to discussing other funding requests, I think Joanna engaged in that discussion a little too, but we just put me.
Okay, so these will be amended and then put back for the next meeting.
You can
You can
adopt
adopt
as
as
amended.
amended. If you so choose.
Okay, but who's capturing the language? Rob's already capturing. I'm capturing it now.
We're capturing it now. I
Do
can,
you have the amended language?
I do,
you want me to email you back to?
no, sure, yeah, if you email it to me and, yeah. Then I'll sign the amended. That works. Don't we have kind of a walkable path to stores? Like behind, from the big play space, there's that big ADA path that goes all the way down.
It's not ADA.
No, well, I guess it's pretty washed out.
Yeah.
But
And a lot of people come from the driveway as well.
Friends of Oak Hill are working with the school to figure out how best to connect the bigger the area. It's part of their four-season plan.
gotcha. I walk my dog on that path almost every day,
It's a good shot.
from the race school to Stores Pond. And it is washed out a little bit, but
Caption language, all right, we have amended, we accepted the amendments. All those in favor? Aye. Okay, thank you. Approval of items 1 to 3 by consent. Actually, what these we're gonna read anyway, so let's just read. These are all donations.
Police Department $500 donation from a member of the Dartmouth College class of 2010, expressed remorse for the way he treated a Hanover police officer when he was a student. This donation was given as a form of amends. The fire department received a 2006 Chevy Silverado donated by Rob Sully for training purposes. And Etna Library received $1,000 from Mr. and Mrs. Thomas P. Hall. move to accept the donations as read.
Second.
Yes, with gratitude for those donations. Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay. That is it for business requiring action. Select board reports.
The only thing I have is what I mentioned earlier, that Barbara McElroy and the Deer Committee, Hanover Deer Committee, would like a spot on the agenda on June 2nd in order to discuss expanding the Deer Management Assistant Program to include the political boundaries of the town of Hanover. And she is collecting more responses and will be here to discuss that on January 2nd.
June 2nd.
June 2nd, yeah. And then just kind of general from downtown, couple of the parklets are up. So we got ours up and the Works has theirs up. I think Murphy's is gonna get theirs up here pretty soon. Nothing too significant to report. The Ian Struckoff from the fourth place is working on putting together a welcome day. And this would be kind of a townwide event, mostly for the downtown, to welcome students, to welcome, new employees from DHMC, people who just moved here. We, for a while, we were really trying to get on the orientation schedule for Dartmouth and received a lot of pushback from Dartmouth College on that because their orientation schedule is so robust as it is. So we're trying to do something separate and just do kind of a welcoming event in downtown.
I think that sounds great. Like I've heard about the former Chamber of Commerce, like sending everyone like basically a basket of stuff.
Yeah.
And like, it was, it felt really charming and welcoming and
Right.
people loved it.
Yeah, so it's just getting going, and I think it'd be awesome. And then I got a draft of the information, I guess, on the funding for Ledyard Park. So we're going to be selling bricks, and we'll be setting up a fundraising website for that, where people can buy a brick that would be placed in the park as a part of the fundraising effort. Still waiting for our cost estimate, so we know how much we need to raise, so we can appropriately price the bricks. Moving along.
Great. Okay. Thanks, Jared. Sure. I think I mentioned the Capital Improvement Program Committee meeting that was May 9th since we last met, and the main focus was the RFP previously discussed in this meeting. I think there was much else. I'm looking for Jenny, who's also there. That was the main thing.
Somehow library question.
Remember those, but
It was about certain funding was removed and why it was removed.
right, yes. Yep.
About what type of stopgap measures were put in place while you're figuring out more funding, basically, for elevator, making sure that works.
Yep. Okay.
Until we have time to properly address all the ADA problems there. I think that was it.
I think the major change in this budget was reduction in the controller for the heating system.
It wasn't the elevator, it was the heating, because we talked about the elevator the time before.
Yeah, it's the heating system controller.
Yeah.
Original cost estimate was 140,000. I think we put in 43,000. The reason why we did that is because there's a $400,000 tranche in the recommissioning report that's a full replacement of the heating system, and this 140,000 would basically be a throwaway once we get there. And we were looking at how we as they need, but without investing that much money.
Got it. Okay.
And we need to do better communicating with the how as to why the changes are made.
Yeah.
But I think we're setting that structure up right now.
Thank you. Great. Jenny, anything else, aside from CIPC?
Yeah, do you know, well, I had a question about Ledyard Park. Is there gonna be a presentation to the select board or?
It's a great question.
Yeah, I don't know that one is planned.
We could, I'm happy to present. I guess I've gotten ahead of myself. So my understanding was that the previous town manager had presented the concept to you, received authorization to get funding to hire a design professional, negotiated with Kennedy and Parker, Paul Simon, to move forward on the design. And then it fell by the wayside with the change in leadership. And I picked that ball up and just started running with it.
Yeah, it was also because it was gonna come back,
Okay, so
so that probably also was not communicated. Yes.
so I'm happy to give you a brief update and then tee it up for a presentation. I welcome it. In short, we're approaching final design. We've been working with Parks and Rec, Public Works, the Downtown Committee, and the architect and landscape architect to make sure that the design is as inclusive as possible for all user groups. Parks and Rec, the way I've looked at it is Parks and Rec will manage this, not unlike any other town facility that can be reserved. And we'll also be looking to program it using percent funds for the Parks and Rec would tee up the whole events there with. The Ledyard Bank has signed a license agreement with me for a 20-year hold on the property with some provisions that they get naming rights, so it's Ledyard Park for that reason. And the only other caveat they had was that no financial other financial institution could use it exclusively for their purposes of advertising their services, which I thought was fair and reasonable.
For the viewing public, do you want to express where
Sure.
this is?
Sure, it would be across the street from Town Hall, in that little pocket area between Ledyard Bank and what was Citizens Bank. And it will include outdoor tables for use by the public at all times, and seating that would be usable by the public at all times, and also designed for performance, entertainment, music, what have you. The design, when fully built, and this may be a phase plan, will include structural improvements that would allow for sunshades and sound and a stage, a temporary stage. We're looking at surface material that would enable ease of maintenance, whether that's some form of high-end AstroTurf or a rubberized surface that you would see on modern day playgrounds. And as we look at the modern day playground rubberized surface, we've discussed improvements that include things like Foursquare or hopscotch to really draw a broader cross-section of the end user and make it more flexible. We have, for those who don't know this, when Andres and Zimmerman came offline, the college was looking to get rid of these 3x3 concrete pavers. We happily took them 2+ years ago and put them in storage, hoping that we could repurpose them. And the design elements of this park includes incorporating those 3x3 pavers. The park includes the opportunity for a food truck option, and we'll need to work out the details on how that's managed and implemented, but that's baked into the plan so that court can support that. The curb is designed to support it. We've reached out to the Rotary, and the Rotary is actively engaged in this project. And one of the elements will be the Rotary Peace Pole. They are going to be doing fundraising for this project. We have commitments from the combined commitments from the Rotary and the bank of at least 100,000 already. And I think the number from the bricks is somewhere around 160,000.
Yeah, sounds about right.
And so we're well on our way to having a fully funded project, not acknowledging that the labor portion of this, a portion of the labor is DPW, which is how we're offsetting. So we're paying for the design, and the only other capital we're investing in it is our staff resources and equipment. But the design has come along and I'll get the design to the board and we'll get it on the next.
So it's like a very well coordinated, thought out plan.
Good job, Rob.
Perfect.
For the town reports, we're in the middle of Bike Month, so happy Bike Month continues. We had a very successful bike walk to school day with lots of kids and families out. And then we had a very successful Curb Your Car Day with our bike lanes. We got a lot of, I'm always surprised when people fill out the survey because they have to stop to like do the QR code. We actually got a couple people who stopped either, who said they didn't bike it, but they would bike it if this were permanent, which I thought was kind of cool. So I don't know if they were driving or walking or what. And then somebody also referred me to Jackson, Wyoming, where they have temporary bollards. They've had them since 2018 that they just screw in and screw out. So I checked those out and those look very cool. I don't think I've seen them in the East Coast. Like I've seen them on curbs, but I haven't seen them. They just.
Yeah, Portsmouth used them on Middle Road for about 2 years.
And how they do.
I think the design had some flaws in it, in that parking was inside of.
Oh, inside the things?
Yeah.
Interesting.
So it made it a little complicated.
Uh-huh, yeah. And then in, unrelated to Bike Month, the Shared Street Vision Planning kicked off the night before town meeting with Carolyn Radish of Tool Design, and she had her team of people along with Dick Van Deen, who's originally from the Netherlands, and he brings a lot of knowledge from a lot of their less car-centric designs here. So that was a really fun meeting because people not only got to see all these different things that other communities were doing, but they got to write comments on maps and put stickers on maps. And then a lot of people also went and visited with the same consultants during the day of town meeting. They were holding an open house in the Howe Library, and their presentation is up on the Hanover Bike Walk website if people want to watch that. And they have a survey up, which is on the town website and the Hanover Bike Walk website. So if people want to do the survey about what they're thinking about for making increasing mobility options around town, please fill out the survey. With the planning board, I just wanted to express my deep gratitude to our chair, Brian Edwards. He is retiring from the board. He has been a phenomenal chair. He has always brings ample wit and charm and runs a fantastic meeting. And we will miss him on the board, but I'm sure he will still be very involved with the town. He's really served for quite a number of years and has done an amazing job. So I just wanted to thank Brian Edwards if you're listening. And then Sustainable Hanover has their next meeting on Wednesday, 8:30 a.m. Right here in Town Hall. The Conservation Commission met, but they didn't have a quorum. So they didn't have too much to report. They talked about deer, so they got in touch with you.
She did.
Yeah.
And I want to echo Jenny's comments about Brian. Brian has been he was part of the team that brought me here. So I vividly remember Brian at my first meeting. I was a little overwhelmed by a planning board that, when fully seated, all had more experience across the spectrum on issues that I did not have. So I was grateful for his leadership and remain grateful for his service. And thank you, Brian. I'll only touch on the fact that on Wednesday I left town and I went to a Primex conference on risk. So I had the opportunity to spend a day and a half looking at how to improve the work that we're doing here with the guidance of Primex team. Their effort was great. And then the following day was the New Hampshire Municipal Managers Conference. And we received guidance on very specific and timely information, such as electioneering, Title IX access to ADA access to online town pages. So the Title IX ADA compliance, we need to comply by 2027. Our provider says that we're compliant, but their reference is one version too old. So we need to go back in, and I don't see how. So we need to make sure Civic Plus is compliant, and any of the social media platforms that we're using as part of our outreach and our electronic outreach, whether it's Parks and Rec's own page or anybody else, needs to be fully compliant. That was helpful in understanding what's expected of us. We also received a detailed presentation on our obligations on tax liens and tax deeds and how those are managed, and what changed fairly recently. So, going forward, what we'll need to be conscious of as we navigate that landscape.
Terrific. Sounds like a busy week for you.
Was the risk about the tax liens or risk about climate change? What was the risk?
So Primex is our insurance company, and they do risk. So it's everything from sexual harassment to hostility in the workplace to just overall activities that we sponsor. In the past, we've asked them whether or not it would be appropriate to have a e-bike lending library owned and operated by the town. That gave them pause because there's certain risks inherent in that. I don't know how Lebanon does it, and that's a good question that I should have followed up on. So they sponsor these conferences. I attended. They actually did a play with all the characters that I know. The town of Prudence, New Hampshire. And it was to show, it highlighted the employment behavior that shouldn't be tolerated. It ranged from family leave rights to injury rights to a range of things that were helpful in the HR front. So it's our risk pool for insurance, and they sponsor these conferences annually. When I signed up for it, I failed to note that it was the day after town meeting. That's all.
Thank you, Rob.
Yeah, that reminds me, when we do look at our ordinance for fair policing, we have some select board related gendered language that could probably be cleaned up with the day.
Excellent.
All right. Thank you, Rob. Anything further?
So may I, Tracy?
Sure,
I believe Tracy was sworn in today as town clerk.
I was.
Oh, today.
Yeah. Bobby Lieutenant. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And Tracy has the authority to swear in the deputy clerk, but it requires approval by the select board by statute. So we can do that. Did you swear her in today?
No.
Okay, so at some point, we're gonna need to have Bobby authorized by the select, or approved by the select board. And just wanted to bring that to your attention. Yeah. We'll put it on the select board's agenda for the second.
Second, okay,
Yes.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, as an appointment.
That timing works.
It'll be fine. I'm in place and can, fine.
Okay, great. Thank you. Jean, see thanks for your signature. Unless there is anything else, I do not believe, unless you have a need for a non-public, I don't believe the select board does.
I do not.
You do not, okay. Then we can adjourn. Please note the time, Mr. Secretary. Okay. All right. Move to adjourn. Favor, second,
Second,
favor.
aye.
We are adjourned. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tracy.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Nick.